Matcha has been all the rage these past few years, and while part of me is kind of excited that its popularity really burgeoned in recent years, there's another part of me that's like, I did it first though. Like, I've always just adored the flavor of matcha, and so I almost have like a sense of pride. I'm like, I was onto the trend way before it became like a Western thing. So like, not to be a pioneer, but anyways, I feel like we're seeing so much matcha lately, and I feel like in terms of food trends, like I feel like it started with matcha and then ube and then like Dubai chocolate. But like, what is the current food trend? What are the kids eating these days? Anyways, Phlur decided to hop on this trend and make their own rendition of a matcha fragrance, which I'm honestly surprised that more houses didn't kind of capitalize on the trend and make a matcha inspired fragrance. I feel like the only one that I can recall at the moment is Musk Matcha by KLE. Yeah, I feel like matcha is not a note that we see very often, and so I was really excited when they announced matcha milk because I am a matcha lover to my core. I have only owned this for like literally less than 24 hours, so I think my opinion on the fragrance can definitely change, but for the time being, I'm pretty confident with my thoughts on the fragrance. So straight up, I'm just gonna say, this does not smell like matcha to me, and that is like a really big disappointment because like that's literally the name of the fragrance, its entire branding and marketing. Like, it's supposed to smell like a matcha latte, or at the very least, like it has some elements of matcha green tea, but this to me just doesn't. Like, I'm not getting any of that here. Okay, while we let that dry down for a little bit, I'll go over the notes real quick. So in the top we have bergamot zest and black tea accord. In the middle we have matcha, macadamia milk, and warm vanilla. And in the base we have musk, amber, and patchouli. We have some very delicious notes here, and I will say, I feel like every note that is listed I do pick up on. I would say excluding the patchouli. So if like the patchouli in the base note was something that was alarming to you and like you don't like the note, I will say I don't really get any of that in this fragrance at all. That being said, while I think that all of the notes that are listed play a part in the composition of the fragrance, some are definitely more pronounced than others. In the opening of this fragrance, I'm getting something really, really citrusy. If you watched my short that I made literally yesterday, that was like a first impressions of the fragrance, I described it as smelling like orange flavored milk. And I still kind of stand by that because it smells so zesty. There's this very bright, kind of airy citrus in the opening that really caught me off guard. I think I'm typically someone who doesn't really pick up on citrus notes that much. When a fragrance has like lemon or bergamot or grapefruit and orange, like unless it is super, super, super citrusy, bergamot especially tends to kind of blend and supplement the other notes rather than being like a standalone scent. But what I will say about this is that the citrus is like really, really strong. Or like, I wouldn't say strong because the fragrance itself is not like really in your face, but it's very prominent. As the fragrance begins to dry down though, we start to get some of the heart notes, which is where I really like the fragrance. This really clean, citrusy opening only lasts for like maybe 10 minutes, so it's not like bad by any means, but I was like kind of put off by it. I just wasn't expecting something so zesty and fruity. I do want to try to paint as good of a picture of what this fragrance smells like as I can, so that people who aren't maybe able to smell it in store before buying can get a good idea of what the fragrance smells like. I would say for a majority of its wear, there's definitely vanilla, there's a lactonic element as well, and it has this kind of floral freshness from the tea. And when I say floral, I don't mean like rose or like a bouquet of flowers, more just like kind of the aromatics that are coming from the tea note. When I smelled this fragrance for the first time, it immediately just like reminded me of some of Phlur's other fragrance mists. So very much like in the same family. It almost feels like they took like some existing DNAs and just built upon them a little bit. But the three Phlur fragrances that I think this fragrance reminds me of are Heavy Cream, Vanilla Nectar, and Cashmere Skin. And so it has this soft, sweet powderiness of cashmere skin, and then it has the very prominent citrus and fruit notes of Vanilla Nectar, and then it also has like the sweetness and lactonic quality as Heavy Cream, albeit like not as strong. It's like a sweet citrusy milk with vanilla and a little bit of tea, but unfortunately what I'm smelling is not matcha. It's not matcha green tea. It's more of like a sweet black tea, and it's very pleasant. Like, I love a black tea note. And so yesterday I felt like the more I smelled it, the more I felt like I was gaslit into thinking that this actually did smell like matcha and like my nose was the problem. So I started to like smell actual matcha. So here we have some literal ceremonial grade matcha powder. It doesn't get more matcha than this. But yeah, I had to kind of remind myself of what matcha actually smells like. Green tea as a scent is just so much more, I guess, like deep and earthy, and it has a bitter element, but it's bitter in a very elegant and not off-putting way. It just smells very complex. When you smell it, like, you know it's matcha, but like when I smell this fragrance, I'm not getting that sensation. I'm getting a sweet, milky tea with elements of citrus and vanilla. So yeah, I hope I was able to describe how it smells. Let's move into the actual rating portion. So starting off with presentation. With all phlur fragrances, I am a very big fan of their fragrance mist bottles. For the price, like they're not like super groundbreaking, but they're just like very minimal and simple. One thing that I will note though is that I really love the atomizers of these. Like usually with fragrance mists, they will have a much just like cheaper and plasticky sprayer. I feel like it just sprays a lot more smoothly than your typical fragrance mist bottle, so I am a big fan. But yeah, overall presentation, it's simple. It's the same as literally every single one of their fragrance mists, but I do like the bottles and the atomizers. Moving on to scent. If we were to isolate the scent, exclude any expectations or preconceived notions, I really like the scent of this fragrance. It is really up my alley, and it just reminds me a lot of Cashmere Skin, which is a fragrance that I already really love. Like, it has the same soft sweetness that just feels so nice to smell and like wear on your skin. The issue, however, is that I did have expectations. When I first heard that they were going to be releasing a matcha milk, I really thought that they were going to try to literally take a matcha milk tea and turn it into a fragrance. We do have a good number of matcha or green tea fragrances on the market with things like Princess, Musk Matcha, Thé Matcha by Le Labo, and the one by Le Monde Gourmand, but none of them smell like an actual matcha latte. And so I thought phlur was going to be making like the first photorealistic, actual Japanese matcha powder-esque fragrance, but it's not that. So if what interests you about this fragrance is the matcha note and you go into it expecting it to smell like the green tea that you know and love, you will be left disappointed. That being said, if you are not a fan of matcha, I do think that this is something that you could enjoy for sure. A lot of people like to describe matcha as smelling / tasting like grass, which if that's the case, then I must be a cow. These are like the same people who say that mint ice cream tastes like toothpaste. Like, no the fuck it doesn't. That's how I know you don't brush your teeth, because it does not taste like toothpaste. Anyways, off topic. This fragrance doesn't have any sort of grassiness that a true matcha has, and I feel like that's the element that really makes it distinct. And just when you smell it, you know it's matcha green tea. I think it smells really great. I'm a big fan of the scent, but not how it was marketed, because it feels a little bit misleading and like the brand capitalized on a trend without actually putting in the work. And then on to performance. I have had a really good track record with phlur when it comes to their fragrance mists. In the realm of performance, they all perform really well, and supposedly their fragrance mists do have a higher concentration of parfum than your average hair or body fragrance mist, so that helps them last longer and wear more like perfumes. I think that matcha milk is no exception. This is definitely lower on the projection side, so same boat as like Cashmere Skin, but the longevity is pretty solid. I would say I got a solid like 4 hours. obviously it projected only for like the first 15 minutes maybe, and then it becomes kind of a skin scent. So if you're looking for something with monstrous sillage that will fill up a room and kind of follow you wherever you go, you're gonna have to look for a different fragrance. But I could smell it on me for quite a long time, and so I'm pretty happy with that. So to wrap everything up, I am disappointed in the sense that this fragrance does not smell like matcha green tea to me. It's definitely not a total loss because I'm still left with like a fragrance that I really enjoy. But that being said, it is reminiscent of some of their previous fragrances, so I would say if you have these three, or honestly even just a couple of them, you will definitely smell similarities with matcha milk, and I don't think that you need it. One thing that I forgot to mention is that this fragrance wears so differently depending on where you spray it. On my skin, I feel like the citrus lingers a bit longer. It definitely feels more kind of ambery and just vanillic. But then on the test strip, and I would say on clothing as well, it just smells very different. Like on the test strip, I'm getting a really light, airy and like soothing tea note, like actual tea, and I will say that I like it on the paper more than I do on my skin. That is my review of phlur's new matcha milk. Let me know your thoughts if you've smelled it, and if not, if you're gonna be checking this one out or not. And in regards to the other fragrance that was released alongside this berry cream, the notes sounded quite yummy and like something that I would really enjoy, but I was looking through some of the reviews and it did not seem like something that would appeal to me. So I am definitely gonna wait until I can smell that one in store. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so. I love you, take care, and I will see you very soon.